Hi, my name's Kurt. Welcome to 7 Best Things, a positive look at pop culture. Today, we're counting down the 7 best moments in Superman 2, starring Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder. Let's go. Number 7, Saving Paris. I love this opening scene. It throws us right into the action, and we get to see Superman do what only Superman can do. But what I like best about this opening scene is the interaction between Christopher Reeve, Margot Kidder, and Jackie Cooper as Perry White. The three are fantastic in this scene, with Perry spouting off one-liner after one-liner after terrorists have seized the Eiffel Tower and threatened all of Paris with a hydrogen bomb. Perry, he calls Clark Kent into his office and he explains the entire situation to Clark. Clark says, "Jeepers, Mr. White, that's terrible." To which Perry replies, "That's why they call them terrorists, Kent." And of course, it eventually leads to that classic line, "Hey, if Paris is going to go kablooey, I want my best reporter in the middle of it." When Clark protests, Perry replies with, "Face it, kid, you're good, but Lois Lane is better." Which leads us straight into the stirring Superman march, and of course, Clark making the quick change in the alleyway behind the Daily Planet, ripping open his shirt to reveal the big red Superman S that never gets old. And then he flies off to Paris to save Paris and Lois Lane. Meanwhile, we get to see the great Margot Kidder in action. She does such a great job as Lois Lane. She is a woman of action. I love how she talks her way past the police officers, and then instead of running away from the danger, she runs towards it because she will do anything to get the story. She is, after all, as Perry White knows, the best reporter at the Daily Planet. She risks her life, climbs the stairs, climbs onto the elevator, and of course things go really wrong. As the elevator is going up, the hydrogen bomb is armed and it begins a free fall. And of course, Superman flies in just in the nick of time to save Lois and to save Paris from going kablooey. Number 6, the Battle of East Houston. The Battle of East Houston is a chance to show off the superpowers of our villains, General Zod, Non, and Ursa. They make a great trio. Terrence Stamp as General Zod is, nothing less than iconic. He has that commanding presence and that powerful voice. The way he delivers his lines is just perfect. And of course, you have Sarah Douglas as Ursa, Jack O'Halloran as Non. They make up a great trio of supervillains for Superman to battle. Now they're going up in East Houston against the US military, and they are going to absolutely destroy and tear apart the city of East Houston. In fact, this gives the special effects team as well as the stunt team a chance to show off all their talents. They do a great job of showing the destruction on a mass scale with explosions and a person being thrown 50 feet through a solid wall. Clifton James makes a surprise cameo as the sheriff. Now, Clifton James was known for playing a role in 2 James Bond movies. In Live and Let Die and Man with the Golden Gun, Clifton James played Sheriff J.W. Pepper. And here, he is certainly reprising his role. He's playing the exact same character. He's not listed as Sheriff J.W. Pepper, he's simply listed as Sheriff, but he is playing the exact same role. This is, as far as I know, the only example of a Superman and James Bond crossover. Speaking of James Bond, 1981 was an important year for movies. 1981 started out as it was a bit of a slump for the movie industry, with less people attending and less tickets being sold. But in 3 weekends, June 12th to June 26th, 3 movies would change the fortunes of the movie industry. These 3 movies were released back to back to back on consecutive weekends. On June 12th, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first Indiana Jones movie starring Harrison Ford was released, and it would become the biggest movie of 1981. The following week, June 19th, Superman 2 was released. And Superman 2 was so anticipated after the first Superman movie that it set all-time box office records. It set the box office record for single-day gross, and it set an opening weekend box office record of $14.1 million. The following week, June 26th, the 12th installment of the James Bond franchise, For Your Eyes Only, starring Roger Moore, was released. And that went on to great international success, becoming one of the top movies of the year, grossing, well, close to $200 million internationally. Those three movies turned around the entire industry and made it a great year for action-adventure movies. Number 5, The Reveal. Clark and Lois are sent by Perry White to do a story on honeymoon couples at Niagara Falls. Now, when Superman turns up at the exact same place at the exact same time, just in the nick of time to save a young boy falling into Niagara Falls, Lois starts to get suspicious. She believes Clark Kent and Superman are the same person, and to prove it, she throws herself into the Niagara River. Well, Clark figures out a way to save her without revealing his identity. But later, back at the hotel, Clark trips and falls, and his hand goes right into a burning fire. And Clark's hand is not burned, proving that he truly is Superman. Now, Clark says himself that subconsciously, he probably wanted to trip and fall. He's been wanting to reveal his identity to Lois ever since their first flight together back in Superman 1. There's lots of great things about the scene, but what I appreciate most are the performances of Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder. When Clark Kent reveals himself as Superman, what Christopher Reeve does is amazing. He simply has his back turned to the camera, he straightens up, he takes off his glasses, and the transformation is amazing. Right before our eyes, he turns from Clark Kent into Superman. This man is an amazing actor. It seems like Lois and Clark are both relieved to get the secret identity game behind them and move on with their lives. What makes this movie work? It's not just an action-adventure movie, it's a great romance as well. And it's a great romance largely because of the performances of Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder. Number 4, Kneel Before Zod. The scene where General Zod, Ursa, and Nan attack the White House and completely take it over is a dramatic scene which shows their power and how helpless the entire world is against this trio of super villains. General Zod walks into the Oval Office like he owns it, and why not? I mean, who's really going to stop him at this point? General Zod wants everyone, everywhere to kneel before him. This is where we get the famous line, "Kneel before Zod." Zod wants to rule everything and everyone to kneel before him. He's no fool. When the man pretending to be the president kneels down before him, Zod remarks, "No man who rules so many would kneel so quickly." It's then that the real president, played by E.G. Marshall, speaks up and says, "I'm the man they are protecting." I really like how the president is portrayed as a man of courage and integrity. Someone who kneels before Zod only to save innocent lives. When the president kneels, he says to Zod, "I'm going to kneel before you for the saving of lives, but there's one man who will never kneel before you." To which Zod replies, "Who is this imbecile?" And the president replies, "I only wish I knew." It shows you, it's a dramatic moment that shows you how helpless the world is without Superman. Number 3, blood. Meanwhile, at the Fortress of Solitude, Lois and Clark are expressing their love for one another, and Clark knows this is the woman he wants to spend the rest of his life with. He has a heart-to-heart talk with his mother, declaring his love for Lois, and Susanna York, playing Lara, replies, "If you want to be with a mortal, you must become mortal." Clark, because of his love for Lois, is willing to make that sacrifice. He enters a molecule chamber, which exposes him to the rays of Krypton's red sun. It strips him of his powers, and the whole process, well, it looks great, and it looks extremely painful on Clark. He is stripped of his powers forever. The next time we see Clark and Lois, they're headed towards civilization, which is in the form of a diner somewhere in Canada. And there they meet a guy named Rocky. Rocky's a mean, nasty guy. He starts to harass Lois. And when Clark sees that, he steps in and asks Rocky to step outside. When Clark has his back turned, Rocky takes a cheap shot at him, and Clark goes flying. I can't emphasize again what a great actor Christopher Reeve is here. He really gets across Clark's humanity. For the first time, he's in pain. For the first time, he's really been hurt. And for the first time, he sees his own blood. It is a great moment showing Clark's humanity. At this point, Clark says to Lois, "Maybe you should hire a bodyguard." Lois says, "I don't want a bodyguard. I want the man I fell in love with." To which Clark replies something really interesting. He says, "Yes, I wish he was here," echoing the sentiments of the president. The next time we see Clark, he is making his way back to the Fortress of Solitude, walking on his own through the snow and through the frozen tundra in order, hoping against hope, that somehow his powers can be restored. When he gets to the fortress, he yells in frustration, confessing that he has failed. He has failed in his mission to protect humanity. He wonders if there is any way his powers can be restored. And of course, the answer comes in the form of a green, glowing crystal. Number 2, the Battle of Metropolis. The Battle of Metropolis begins with Zod and his gang attacking and destroying the offices of the Daily Planet. Most of the damage is done by Non, and you get an idea of his raw power as he completely destroys the building and gives a sense of how helpless it is to fight against this trio of supervillains. Luthor also enters into the scene using the door and explains that if you have Lois Lane, then you've got Superman. Now that Lex has made himself expendable, General Zod decides to kill him. Luthor is frightened for his life. And then comes one of the greatest punch the air moments in the Superman franchise. We hear the Superman March by John Williams. We see the newspapers rustling in the wind. And then we see Superman appear at the window of the Daily Planet, fold his arms and say, "General, would you care to step outside?" It is a great punch the air moment. Of course, the same line he used against Rocky a few scenes earlier. He was overmatched at the diner, and he's overmatched now. After all, it's 3 against 1, or 4 if you count Non twice. He is completely overmatched, and these supervillains can hurt him a lot worse than what Rocky did to him. Doesn't matter. Superman may lose this battle. He may get seriously hurt. He may even get killed in this battle. But this is what heroes do. When Superman shows up at the Daily Planet, Luthor is relieved. Zod is infuriated. "Come to me, son of Jor-El. Kneel before Zod." Did I mention that Terrence Stamp is awesome as General Zod? Of course, the fight begins in earnest, and somebody in the crowd says, "This is going to be good." And they're right. It's going to be awesome. A spectacle like this, a superhero versus three supervillains, had never been attempted before, and it is an incredible battle where buses and manhole covers are used as weapons, and one punch can send someone flying 4 city blocks into an exploding Coca-Cola sign. It is a battle of epic proportions. Again, the odds are 3 against 1, but Superman more than holds his own. Of course, he is better at using his powers in combat, no doubt due to his training by Jor-El, and also the fact that he's had them longer and used them in Earth's atmosphere more often. And of course, although the villains can't overcome Superman physically, General Zod does discover his weakness. He says he cares for these humans. He actually cares for them. And they start using that to their advantage. They start causing mass destruction in the city and start putting innocent civilians in danger. Superman has to spend his energy protecting people and minimizing the damage. But when Ursa takes a bus full of people and she and Nan throw it into Superman, he sacrifices his body in order to protect the people and save them from harm. Then, realizing what's going on, Superman does something absolutely unexpected and absolutely brilliant. He flies away. Let's move on to number 1. Number 1, the switch. When Superman flies away, the crowd thinks he's scared, and Zod calls him a coward. But that's exactly what he wants Zod to think. He is going to fly out of Metropolis, and he wants Zod and Ursa and Nan to follow him. He may be able to defeat them if they fight long enough, but not without putting innocent people's lives in danger and destroying half the city. Superman cares way too much to let that happen. And so he's going to fly away from the city and put people out of danger. I love this ending, and let me tell you why it's such a satisfying ending. One person I think who deserves a lot of credit for the greatness of Superman 1 and 2 is Mario Puzo. Yes, that Mario Puzo, the guy who wrote The Godfather. He also wrote Superman 1 and 2 as one complete story. And Superman 2 completes the character arc of Superman begun in Superman 1. You see, in Superman 1, Clark was really naive. He fell for Luthor's trap, hook, line, and sinker. He's the one who opened up the kryptonite box. He caught himself in Luthor's trap. Remember what Luthor said to him then? Mind over muscle. But in the meantime, Superman has grown as a character. He's learned a few things. And now he sets his own trap. And one thing he knows for certain, is that Luthor will betray him. He's absolutely sure of that fact. He doesn't need to spring the trap on the villains. They spring it on themselves. Superman is able to defeat Luthor and Zod and Ursa and Nan without destroying half of Metropolis or putting innocent lives in danger. How does he do it? Well, exactly how Luthor said. Mind over muscle. It's a great ending to a great character arc and a satisfying conclusion to 2 epic Superman movies. What do you think? What was your favorite moment in Superman 2? Let me know in the comments below. Maybe put together your own list of the 7 best moments. Thank you for joining me today. If you get a chance, you can like, share, or subscribe. That really helps me a lot. And if you like this video, there's other videos on this channel you might like as well. Please feel free to check those out as well. Thanks so much for joining me today, and have a great day.